Cybercrime just became the world's third largest economy. So if you look at it in terms of those terms, the US obviously number one, then China, then cybercrime. It is that big out there. And we don't think of it here because obviously it's not going on here in the US where we have good, strong laws. But there are in other countries, there are businesses that, for all appearances, look like legitimate businesses. They get vacation time. They have HR departments. They work 9 to 5. But what do? They're committing cybercrime and hacking Americans today.
Is Russia the main culprit, or is it?
It is primarily Russia. There are organizations there. It is a totally legitimate profession over there.
So Keith, going back to what you're saying, that these are like corporatized businesses, like, I don't want to say legit businesses because it's clearly not a legitimate business, but what do they do? Like, what are some of the things that they do to get access to people's finances?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of people still have this vision of, cybercrime as being hackers, with the green screen and the lights, and they're pounding on firewalls. And that's not what hacking is today. Today's hacker is an email marketer who has gone to the dark side. Over 90% of all hacking today starts with an email, and the email looks totally innocuous and says something like, hey, you just got a package from Amazon, log in here to get more information. And you go, I didn't order a package. Let me see what's going on. You log in, and they get all your information.
So I want to probe that a little bit, because you came in here and you did a phenomenal presentation to our staff. And I think it's safe to say that everybody was legitimately scared after you came and talked to us. But I've seen those emails come through and they look legitimate. They've got Amazon's, in the case of Amazon, they've got Amazon's branding or Fidelity's branding. So how do you get in there? How can you tell it's not a legit email?
Yeah, there's a few things you should look for. Number one is they're almost always, when they send these emails, going to make it sound urgent or really important right now. And they're doing this because they want to get you thinking, oh my God, I've got to act right now, and not stopping and thinking critically. So the number one thing they'll say is, reset your password. You got 15 minutes or we're going to lock you out of your account or something like that. And that's because they don't want you to pause and look at it more carefully. So anytime you see something urgent, that's a matter for pause. The other thing you should look for is this expected? Anytime you get an email out of the blue that you weren't expecting, it's one thing if I'm waiting for Chris, you to send me an email, my money, and then I get that email, that's expected. But if you send me something out of the blue saying, hey, by the way, you got to reset your Fidelity account right now, that should get my attention, because that's not normal. I should pick up the phone and call Chris and see what's going on. The other thing you do is you got to be a little skeptical of your emails. Look at them carefully. Look at the domain name they're from. Is it Fidelity or is it like the Fidelity? Look at the letters. Are they misspelling it by one letter here or there? They love to pull those tricks so that at a glance you don't notice the difference. You got to look at those little details and also inspect the links. Look at the links in the email and see if they're actually going to the real site. A really good, safe thing to do is if you get an email, let's say it's from Fidelity, don't click the link. Go to Fidelity's website by hand, your existing bookmark, type it in, and log in there, and then see what's going on.
Well, I find that too. A lot of times they'll ask you to download something. And what if you accidentally download something? Is there something now on your computer that can wreak havoc? Or what's the typical...
So if you always hear don't
Trojan horse.
Yeah. So if you download something you shouldn't download, what can happen? It's actually pretty scary. So they're going to do a couple of things. The number one thing they're going to do is they're going to what's called scrape the cookies. And let me explain what that means. When you log into all the different websites out there that you log into over the course of the day, they drop a cookie on your computer so they know it's you. And typically we all know this. You stay logged in for a day or however long it is. And they have that little token that says that cookie that says, hey, this is person, they're real, do it. They're going to grab those and then put them on their own computer. So now they're logged in as you without ever using your password. Now, admittedly, they're only good for however long that login is, but while they're there, think about how much they can do. They can change your password. They can do more things. So that's one of the things you got to look out for. In the worst case scenario, they can install a keylogger, so they key every key you type, they're sending off to them, including your passwords, and even screen captures, so they can see what's on your screen.
And these are coming more and more often. I get these daily, we're getting emails, you get texts. I mean, you know to watch out for them, but we get calls from clients who are, they assume this is going to happen to their elderly parents, but it's happening to people who are younger because it's so easy. So if this happens to you and you click on something or whatever it is, what is the first thing you should do in that scenario?
No, if you let's say you've downloaded a program and you didn't know what it is, first thing you should do is think about what was I logged into at that moment, okay? And go reset all those passwords, because when you do that, it'll force all those sessions to reset. So if you change the password on an account, there's an existing cookie, it's going to be invalidated. So they're immediately booted out. The other thing is run a full scan on your antivirus right away. And that's really what you can do there. You got to be really careful though.
So Keith, I mean, can you tell us about a situation where, this has transpired and it kind of went downhill? I mean, like what are some of the worst case scenarios that you've seen?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I'll give you a great example. You said you think about old people, but I had a client.
Like Ryan's age?
I had a client with a new employee. He got a text from the CEO, but not really the CEO, obviously, saying, I'm giving a presentation to our investors. I want some gift cards to give out at prizes. And, I think it was just that. He was new. He was young. He'd only been out of school, I think, a couple of years, real eager to please. And he sent like $5,000 in gift cards to no address. And it was exactly what I'm talking about. It was rushed. He wasn't thinking right. But was it expected? No, it was out of the blue, but he didn't think. And this was a 24, 25-year-old kid.
Wow. So if the IRS calls and tells you that you can pay your tax bill with penalties with gift cards, that's probably a scam?
Probably a scam. And the thing I tell clients, the IRS, they don't call, they don't email, they send letters, guys. Like anything, you got to know where you know how people communicate with you.
Hey, Keith, you're talking about these phishing emails. What are the most popular?
Yeah. So what they really want to do is get into your email. So anything that refers to like your AOL account, your Microsoft account, your Google account, those are actually the ones you've got to be most suspicious of. And let me explain why for a minute. If they get into your email account, think about how much someone can learn about you from your email.
Walk us through that for a second.
Yeah.
How can they get into your email account? Like,
Sure.
What are the ways they get in?
So let's say, for example, they send you an email from Microsoft. It looks like Microsoft to all intents and purposes. There's a link here that says click here to log in. You click the link. You're going to go to a page that looks like Microsoft, but it's not Microsoft. Okay. You're going to type in your username and your password thinking you're logging in. But what you really just did was give the hackers your username and your password. Now, let's say you are particularly diligent and you have two-factor authentication on your account.
Right. It'll go to a text message or something else as your second factor.
Exactly. So what the hackers are going to do is they're going to take that username and that password and they're going to plug them in to the real Microsoft account, which generates the text message or that code or whatever you need to get past the two-factor. You then get the text message. It's a legitimate text message from Microsoft, right?
So you're grabbing that from you.
You key that into their site, and now they put it into the Microsoft site, and now they're in. And now they can do whatever they want. And once they're in there, they're going to start trying to figure out as much as they can about your life. And think about how much someone could learn about you by reading all your emails. I mean, who you do business with, who your suppliers are, who your customers are, who your family is, who you give money to regularly, who your doctors are. Plus, how do you reset every other password in your life? Through your email. So now they really have the keys to the kingdom. And it used to be they would read all of this. Now they have AI tools that will do it for them. So they'll plug this AI tool into your email account and be like, where does this guy do his banking? And the AI will scour all this for all the banking emails and say, oh, he's at Wells Fargo.
This is so frightening. No, it really is. And we've seen this too, where we'll get an email from a client where their email has been hacked. And I've noticed that the way they used to, when they communicate, you'd be like, there's no way this is my client. Maybe the English was a little off or something like that. But because of AI, even the way they request money now has gotten better and better. So that blows my mind, but that's like...
Well, what they're doing is they're reading all their sent emails, learning this person's writing style.
Yes.
Either doing it themselves or learning AI to learn the writing style. So yeah, you know the way, let's say I email you, you know the way I speak. Now they know the way I speak.
Exactly.
Hey, Keith, you said that the first thing people should do is run their antivirus software. So for the people that are listening to this, if they don't have one, which one should they purchase?
Almost all of them are good. There's a lot of them on the market. I personally am a fan of McAfee for something out there. The other one I really like is WebRoot, does a really nice job of covering what's going on out there. And they both also include not only antivirus, but some, identity protection and those sorts of things, which I think are as big a part of the thing today. Because good securities and levels. It may get past the virus, but let's get some identity protection on you as well to make sure you're covered.
One thing that that you told us about is checking the strength of our passwords. There's a website out there that you could go on and test the password that you're using, and also generate passwords. So can you talk just a little bit about like what's a good way to formulate a password?
Yeah. So the number one password everyone has on their computer is password. And the hackers know this. And love, by the way, is also popular. And the one I never understood, the word love. And the one that's really popular that I never understood is monkey. Apparently a lot of people love monkeys out there. I don't know why, but that's another really popular. So if your password is any of those, change it right now.
Chris's monkey love password too.
And this is something where the advice has changed in the last, I guess, maybe 18 months. So, you used to talk about rotating passwords and changing your passwords all the time.
Yeah.
And what we've learned is that when you do that to people, make them change their password every 3 months, they get really sloppy and get into these habits that everybody figures out. So they go, my password is monkey love 1. And the next time they go monkey love 2. And then they go monkey love 3. So the hacker sees your password is monkey love 2. Guess what they try for your password, guys?
Yeah. Right.
They're not that stupid. They're on to you. So because of this, what we've learned is to tell people get one password, make it really long. And I'll talk for a minute why length is important. And make it something nobody can guess, and then never change it. Just have it in your head. I love a phrase. So, that way you can remember it easily. And I always say the best thing here is inside jokes. People say, oh, I'll use a song. Hackers know that trick. The songs are about songlers in public. An inside joke, something that you and your family, something inside your company. Those are the best things because nobody knows them. No hacker's going to guess it. And you can put it in there and use it that way. So that's my favorite password. And you want it to be long. They say 15, 18 characters. And the reason you want length is because oftentimes what happens is we're encrypting the data with your password. So if you have a short password, hackers can throw random passwords at things to decrypt data. And if you have a short password, there was recently, this major data breach and they downloaded this database and they figured out if you had an 8-character password, the hackers were going to break it. And I forget the number, but it was like minutes. They could throw random numbers out, so they got it. If you had a 15-character password, it would take longer than the age of the universe to hack your password. So a 15-character password is what you want. It's virtually unhackable. So that's what you want. One good long password. And if I can elaborate, the best way to do this is use a password manager. If you have one of these password managers, it installs into your browser. It's very easy to use.
What is a password manager for those at home and me?
Password manager is a little tool that plugs into your computer, your browser, your phone, everywhere you do it. It generates a long, horrible, random password.
It's like an app?
It's an app.
Okay.
It's an app.
Yeah.
It generates a long, horrible, random password for every site you go to. So that way they're all unique. You want different passwords. They're all totally unguessable, right? It puts it in so you don't have to think of it. You don't have to remember it. You remember one password to your password manager and it fills it in everywhere.
Keith, what app do you recommend?
My personal favorite is Keeper for this. It's called Keeper.
Yeah.
I think actually the URL is Keeper Security. And look, this is a win-win because most things in cybersecurity make your life more difficult. This makes your life easier. Look, I can't tell you how many times I talk to people who can't remember their passwords and they hate passwords and they can't figure them out. This solves that problem. Everything goes in the manager. The manager keeps track of all your passwords. You remember one password and it takes care of it from there. It is both easier and more secure.
Will that replace all of your passwords? So if you start something like that, do I need to go update all my passwords or will that update them for you if you start something like that?
No, you're going to have to go reset them. So what it will do is the first time you go to a site, it'll automatically remember your password for you. So that's very nice. So you go to a site, you put your username password, it'll say, you remember this? You go, yeah, remember it. It remembers it. And then if you go to the password change, it'll actually walk you through the change process. But it'll say oh, you're changing your password. I'm going to fill in a new random password for you. Here's how you do it. But you have to go to the page.
Okay.
It's not going to automatically change all your passwords.
Yeah.
You got to think about that far. Yeah.
What about identity theft? What identity theft software do you recommend?
So identity theft to me is really more, not so much a technical issue, but administrative. And there's two big tools there. One is monitoring, so you know what's happening, which if you don't have some kind of monitoring on your social, I definitely recommend it.
So can you put that on your email as well? So if your Microsoft email or your Gmail gets hacked, would that monitor that as well or no?
No, this is something for people that will not monitor your email as well. There are professional tools, and honestly, I'm not aware of any that are available for the consumer.
Got it.
But for organizations, companies like Payne Management is one of the things we have on for you guys. You can monitor the email box and look for suspicious behavior within the box. I'll give you a classic example. If, for example, Ryan, you log in here in New York from your email, and then 30 seconds later log in from Russia, we realize you didn't hop on a plane that fast, and we're going to lock your email account until we figure out what's going on.
Got it.
There are more subtle things like that are monitored for, and there are many professional tools that do this kind of monitoring. And unfortunately, there's none available at the consumer level, though.
And I get these letters, and our clients get them, where there's nothing you did, but there's some sort of organization maybe it's a doctor's office or, somewhere, and somebody else got hacked, where they say, oh, your data has been compromised, and it's nothing you did. So is that where something like a LifeLock or identity monitoring is the best thing that you can do to prevent all of these other places that have our information?
No, it's a great question. And there's really two things. One is a LifeLock or something like that. The other thing you can do is use a different password everywhere you work. And that's why you want a different password everywhere. Because if one site gets hacked and they get a hold of that password, the first thing a hacker is going to do is try it on popular sites, every banking site, Google, Microsoft, Amazon. They're going to try it and see if maybe they get a hit and you reuse the password.
Is that where this password generator protects you?
Right. The password generator will protect you because it's a different password everywhere.
It sounds like a no-brainer.
I'll tell you one thing that I hear about all the time, and I always thought it was science fiction, but is there really a dark web?
There is a dark web. It's
Okay.
not science fiction. The dark web is it's really more a system of way of web browsing and email and everything we have on the normal web, but doing it anonymously so that there is no way to track what servers you're on, what you're doing, all that. And there is legitimate criminal activity going on there every day. There is even an Amazon of the dark web, believe it or not, where you can buy all sorts of illegal paraphernalia.
You know anyone's ever gone on the dark web?
I have been on the dark web. I have seen it, to be very honest with you.
What's it look like?
It looks just like the regular web. The only difference is that unlike a regular website where you can track, you go to any website, a IT professional can track down the owner of that website through means. There's an accountability stream with that website. On the dark web, there is no way to track down that website you've been to.
Wow. It's like the Silk Road back in the day where you could buy drugs with cryptocurrency.
The Silk Road is down, but because the FBI figured that one out, but there is a replacement.
Just to be clear, we are not condoning anybody going on the dark web.
And I want to be clear that I have done it to help my clients who have had information put on the dark web.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the most recent episode of Payne Points of Wealth. Everything you hear on this podcast, along with some due diligence of your own, can help you get ahead financially, literally at any stage of your journey. But if you want a more hands-on approach and you saved over $1 million, Bob, Chris, and I will put together for you our total financial master plan, and we'll do that with no obligation or cost. It's a full holistic review. We literally look at everything. We go as far as building you your own personalized financial portal. We'll give you a bird's eye view of your entire financial life, and we'll hone in on every financial issue you need to address today. Whether it's an income plan for retirement, how do you take Social Security? How do you draw from your portfolio? How do you factor in inflation? We'll build a dynamic income plan for you. We'll look at diversification. Has your portfolio been up and down with the markets, extremely volatile, or have you been sitting in cash? Paralysis by analysis. You can't figure out what to do. We'll put together a full investment game plan, tie it to your goals, show you how to grow your wealth, but most importantly, protect it over the rest of your life. And we'll look at fees and taxes. Wall Street loves to sell you high cost, tax inefficient products, whether it's an annuity, mutual fund, brokerage product. We'll do a deep dive of every investment you own. We'll show you how to reduce the cost, optimize your portfolio for taxes. It's not what you make, it's what you take. You'll get our full tax playbook. If you want this full holistic review and you saved over $1 million, simply go to www.paynecm.com/financial plan or click the link below to see if you qualify for a free financial review. Are Macs safer than traditional computers run by Windows?
Great question, because I think there's a myth in the Mac community that Macs are immune to all of this. Are they safer? Yes. Macs are built upon a safer platform, if you will, than Windows is. Having said that, it is marginally safer. It is a little bit safer, but everything I said applies both to Windows and Mac. Anyone who's still under the misnomer that you can, because you have a Mac, you're immune or you don't need antivirus, is kidding themselves.
Yep. So to go back a little bit, so you talked about the different layers. Like one thing you talked about was two-factor or multi-factor authentication. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Sure. So this is becoming increasingly standard. We're all used to websites where you put an email address and a password in, and that's been standard for decades. What is increasingly becoming standard, when like Microsoft has just made it their standard, Google's made it their standard, is not only that, but another indicator. So they say there's 3 factors in the world, if you will. And I'm going to get a little academic here. It's, who you are, right? There's who you are, something you know, and something you have, right? Something you know is a password. The idea is to incorporate other elements, who you are and something you have, into it. So by sending you a text message, we're making sure that you have your phone. We're also knowing you are who you are because you can't get into your phone without doing your Face ID or the password there. So there's a layer there. Even better than text messages, a lot of them are moving to app-based two-factor, where you punch in a number. And that's better because they can't even spoof the SMS code. They have to need the app on your phone. So we now know it's you because of the security on the phone,
Yeah.
something you have. We know you have your phone in your hand, and something out of your own head, the password.
Well, it seems like these hackers are getting smarter and smarter every day. So, like, is there anything that you can tell us about? What does your crystal ball say about, some of the dangers, in the near term and, further down the road?
I mean, let me be clear. This is an arms race. Every time they come up with something, we come up with something to defend, and it's going back and forth. And it's been going this way for several years now, and I see it happening in the future. I think one of the scariest things out there on the horizon is this. I'm sure you guys have heard about quantum computers, which is supposedly the next generation quantum computers. And if quantum computers are the promise they say they are, and you never know, they will be able to, frankly, decrypt all of our existing encryption.
What is a quantum computer?
So a standard computer that we have today is based upon electricity, and at the end of the day, it's nothing more than a series of wires. We've gotten those wires really, really small, but it's a series of wires. A quantum computer actually does calculations using properties of atoms and individual molecules at that level. And the big thing about a quantum computer, if you know anything about quantum mechanics, is there's this thing called superposition where things can be in multiple states at once, right? Getting a little sci-fi here, but it's reality. What it also means is they can do thousands of calculations simultaneously.
Right. So your ability to crack a code becomes...
Right. Rather than trying one. So traditional, when you crack a code, you're trying one password at a time, very, very quickly.
And with AI, right? Now with AI, you're doing it quicker than you've ever done it before. And these NVIDIA chips.
Right. You're doing it super, super fast. What quantum computing would let you do is do not one at a time, but simultaneously trying thousands at a time. And when that comes out, we're going to have a real thing because we're going to have to reinvent how we do encryption. The whole thing, systems are going to have to get changed in order to combat it.
Well, this brings up a stat I found recently, and I want you to comment on this if you can. But they say when AI is combined with quantum computing, science fiction will no longer be fiction. It'll probably be bad news for blockchain and cryptocurrencies that depend on it because encryption codes will be so easy to hack. Yes. So does that also like an argument against blockchain and crypto, which has a lot of hype right now?
Absolutely. Look, when quantum computing comes, and let's be honest, it's when, not if, right? It's only a matter of time till we get it. It will crack all existing encryption, and we will have to upgrade all our technology, all our security in order to counteract it. Probably also using, by the way, quantum computing.
Right.
Blockchain, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, these are all based on existing encryption algorithms. And they have no ability to upgrade, by the way. These are existing standards. You can't just upgrade Bitcoin one day and say it is a different encryption. It doesn't work that way. Quantum computing could totally make it the whole thing seeable by anyone.
So Chris, basically, when he cracks the code, he can just make Bitcoins all day in his basement.
Yes.
That's the biggest risk.
So Keith, how do hackers actually make money through gift cards?
Gift cards are a basically untraceable form of money that can be transmitted over the internet. And that's why they ask for gift cards. If they ask you for your credit card number or your bank account number, that could be traced back to them and there'd be ways of stopping them from doing it. But gift cards are an untraceable form of money. The other untraceable form of money that you can transmit around the internet is Bitcoin and all these currencies. And frankly, if it was not for their existence, this whole cybersecurity thing would not be nearly the issue it is, because that is the primary way they're getting paid.
Can you tell us one of the craziest stories that you've ever seen when it comes to some sort of cyber fraud that just like blew your mind?
I think the one that blew my mind the most was someone I knew got a call from Verizon, which wasn't Verizon, saying there was a problem with their internet. And they had them on the phone for over an hour trying to fix the problem. Meanwhile, they were getting hold of passwords, all that. The call took so long that while they were on the phone, they happened to call in to me for a totally unrelated reason. And blah, blah, blah. Oh, and by the way, there's this issue. They kind of mentioned it, by the way. I thought this happened in the past. Literally, the hacking attempt was happening while I was on the phone with them.
Was this a business or someone's personal?
This is personal.
Okay.
Literally, they were on the phone with the hacker and they're like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Hang up the phone." I'm like, literally, we got to go through everything you did. We got to go through, trace your browser history, look at everything you gave them. We got to figure all of this out. But literally, I've only ever seen one literally happening while I'm watching it.
Did they what ended up getting taken from them, if anything?
The bad news is they got all access to a lot of passwords. The good news is because we knew so quickly what was going on.
Yeah.
We were able to reset passwords and get in there and do what we need to do before any significant damage was done.
Hey, Keith, wherever I go, anywhere in the country, you see people in Starbucks, on their computers, in the airport. Are they putting themselves at risk?
Yeah, and this isn't a very much an evolving thing in the technology security space. So using public Wi-Fi is kind of a little fraught, particularly airports are particularly known, or your local Starbucks. And the reason is you really don't know. Just because something says it's Starbucks Wi-Fi doesn't mean it's Starbucks Wi-Fi. It could be the guy next to you with a laptop who you think is working, but actually set up his own Wi-Fi, called it Starbucks Wi-Fi, and is reading all the traffic back and forth, everything going on. So you do have to be careful in these scenarios. The good news is that more websites are encrypted today than ever before. Email between you and Microsoft and Google is encrypted like it wasn't before. So to be honest, this is not the threat it once was 5 or 10 years ago, but it absolutely is still a threat. And we do still hear stories of people getting hacked by using a public Wi-Fi and someone reading the stream. And a couple tips there. One is use a VPN. I'm sure you've seen the ads for the VPN companies out there. That'll protect you.
What's a VPN?
A VPN is basically an encrypted tunnel that you build between yourself and the internet, so that even if you're routing through some bad actor's computer in the Starbucks, he just sees gibberish. He's seeing encrypted traffic, so he has no idea what you're doing. The other great tip is use the hotspot on your phone. Phones have nice security. If you use the hotspot, it's often faster than the Starbucks or airplane Wi-Fi or hotel Wi-Fi anyway, and it's more secure.
You know, when you go up on a website and they say, download all the cookies, required only, or ignore, I mean, what's your advice on that?
So according to the European standards, every website you visit has to request permission before using a cookie. And a cookie is a little, as I talked about before, a little piece of information that they drop on your computer so they know who you are. And additionally, you do things like log in. Frankly, it lets them track you for advertising purposes so they can track you around the web. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, none of us really want to be tracked around the web. The flip side is usually in order to do things we want to do, like log in, e-commerce, those sorts of things, you have to let them track you so when you go back, they know which shopping cart is yours. So generally speaking, my advice is to accept the cookies and do it because you're going to want the functionality. Strictly speaking, you're just saying no, yes, or you can discover a lot of websites don't work. Yeah, so you got to do it.
What about, so you said, but on the airplane, you said that's pretty secure.
No, I would not say. The airplane Wi-Fi is just as unsecure as everything else. There's nothing to stop the guy in the seat 2 rows back from setting up his own Wi-Fi, calling it United Wi-Fi, and pretending to be United and do exactly the same thing from you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and there, unfortunately, you don't have the option of doing a hotspot.
What about those public, like USB ports? Like I know I see those at airport. You want to charge your phone up. You know, you're on 2% battery.
Yeah. So when you plug something into your phone or your computer, these public charging stations, remember, those ports can be used for power. You can also use them to transfer your photos. That means a hacker can get in through them. And to be honest, because they assume you have to plug something physically into your device, they don't have great security because they assume that you know what you're plugging into your device. So there's actually been lots of stories and lots of reports of people putting these free charging stations up built by hackers for hackers. And they do charge your phone is the good news. But while they're charging, they're stealing all your data. And why do they charge your phone? Because they want you to leave it there. So your phone gets a charge for an hour or two.
But that's a problem with a USB port. If you're physically plugging into a wall, that's
Correct.
not a problem. Okay.
This is survival in the modern world. This is like lock your car and don't walk down a dark alley alone at 2 a.m.
Is Alexa actually listening to your conversations?
So according to their terms of service, neither Google or Amazon listen to you unless you give the command word. So they both say they are not listening to you unless you speak to them directly.
Do you believe that?
I do. However, I think what we don't realize is how often we are Googling, doing something else to key off the internet marketers of the world what we're thinking about. You know, you Google something, you send an email to a friend about it. If you've got a Gmail account, Google reads that for marketing purposes.
But how many times have you been just talking about something with a friend or something, and all of a sudden you go on the web and literally...
And then there's also confirmation bias, remember, that we're all programmed to, see those sorts of things, see those coincidences where they're not. Yeah. Humans see 10 out of every 2 coincidences?
I think it's too much of a coincidence.
I think it's too much of a coincidence.
I'll have people, it's not something I would ever Google, but I'll have somebody else say something next to me. And suddenly I'm getting ads for it.
The reason I believe it is because if they were listening, too many people would have to know that it wouldn't have gotten out. You think about how many different engineers, product testers, quality control people would have to know about that. We're talking hundreds and not thousands of people would have to know that would get out.
I still don't believe you. All right, so hidden facts of finance, random financial facts that may surprise you or even shock you. All right, Bob, while the majority of stocks lost money from 1926 through 2023, The biggest return came from Altria Group, formerly known as Philip Morris, which turned a buck into $2.65 million during that time frame, which is crazy. Modest returns from a seemingly staid business can generate a fortune over decades. You think it would be like a technology company or something like that, but it's just people smoking cigarettes. Crazy.
Well, Rye, it was legal to sell a drug that addicts people. And Altria, Philip Morris, has benefited from that forever. But I think that the thing that you miss on this particular investment is that their dividend has been increased, I think, 65 consecutive years now.
That's crazy.
Not just paid, but increased at a pretty substantial rate.
Yeah, and we forget, right? If you look at the S&P 500 long term, 40% of the return comes from dividends. And last time I checked, the S&P 500 right now only pays a 1.03% dividend. Wild. Yeah. Are you a smoker, Keith?
I am not a smoker. And I'll tell you what jumps out at me about that is you're talking about a stock that I am sure is way off of their peak sales numbers once upon a time, whenever peak smoking was. I mean, if you said invest in smoking, I'd be like, no way in the world. That'll never make money. And yet look at the stats.
Well, you got to remember, too, it's not just the U.S. I mean, smoking is not necessarily as frowned upon in places like China and the emerging markets.
That's that too. And the other one is, and I know this because I picked up a small habit with those Zins, which are almost those little pouches. It's almost like the modern dip. Those things go like wildfire now. And now, of course, you have vaping as well. But those things are so addictive. So they've almost reinvented the way people smoke now or use tobacco products.
Socially acceptable smoking. You heard it here first.
All right, Chris. U.S. consumers spent a lot of time and money shopping online this holiday season, ran up a record $241 billion from November 1st to December 31st. That's 8.7 more than the year prior, according to Adobe data. Most online transactions, 54.5%, took place via smartphones this holiday season, up from 51% in 2023. So it looks like we're just scrolling our phone, buying stuff.
Yeah, we're definitely a consumer culture. It's so easy to go on your phone and just order exactly what you want.
What did you buy for the holidays this year on your phone?
I have no problem with phone purchases. My husband gives me a hard time all the time because he thinks if it's a big enough purchase, like plane tickets, for example, he would never buy on his phone. I have an app for my airlines and I'll just buy a plane ticket, no problem. And that stresses him out to no end.
I feel the same. For some reason, it just feels more secure doing it on your computer, which is probably not true, Keith. You can attest to that.
From a technical security point of view, it doesn't make any difference in terms of cybersecurity. Actually, your phone's probably more secure than a Windows computer. But I'm with your husband. Like, I want the big screen. I want to double check the numbers 4 ways. I want to look at it different ways. And I can't do that on my phone.
The bigger the purchase, the bigger the computer. That's
Exactly.
how I feel. I want to go the old mainframe if I'm going to buy
a house. You got to
Yeah.
you got to put it up on the conference screen for you.
All right, Courtney. Spain's economy is rocking right now. Its real GDP grew at 3.3% year over year in the third quarter of 2024. Well exceeding recent economic growth for the collective Eurozone at only 1%. And in 2025, real GDP is expected to grow at 2.9%, which is actually higher than the U.S., because of immigration, tourism, foreign investment, and public spending.
And I think this is a good reminder where most investors tend to just focus on the US and we kind of forget about all of this growth that can happen abroad. And people are just throwing aside emerging markets, Europe. But I think this is a good example where there is a lot of growth and these companies are way undervalued compared to the United States. So you want to look at some of these as longer term opportunities.
The only interesting thing is I was in Barcelona this summer and I mean, it was just flooded with tourists. And literally on every corner, they had big signs up that said, "Tourist, go home."
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the locals were squirting the tourists with water pistols.
It was very hot in Europe this summer. They're just trying to cool them down.
Yeah, I thought that was actually an amenity they were giving me as a tourist. They're so happy having another American who speaks English, doesn't speak Spanish, walking around like they own the place. Yeah, I couldn't figure out why they wanted me to go home.
With your American flag jacket.
With my American flag hat. Hey, hope you enjoyed episode 188, Payne Points of Wealth. If you like our podcast, you love our podcast, please give us that 5-star rating on Spotify, iTunes. You can like this episode if you're watching this on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click that notification bell to be updated every week of all our new podcasts. Your support gives us the ability to continue to do this podcast. That's it for this week. As always, stay loose and keep an open mind.
Thanks for listening to the Payne Points of Wealth. Hopefully, you found the ideas discussed in this episode valuable and useful for your own financial journey. You can find out more about Bob, Ryan, and Chris's firm, Payne Capital Management, at bebullish.com or through the contact information found in the description of this episode in your podcast player or app. Join us next week for another episode of The Payne Points of Wealth, brought to you by Payne Capital Management. Information provided on today's show is provided for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Investment is obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed.